you ahead of her.
My mother suddenly glared at me and blurted out. I was so startled that I couldn't say anything. I had wanted a child, and I thought my mother would be happy to have her first grandchild. However, my mother doted on my sister Magnolia, and she didn't seem to like that. I got pregnant before Magnolia. My mother glared at my belly and made a shocking statement.
I want Magnolia's child to be my first grandchild. You get abortion.
My name is Sienna. I'm a 25-year-old housewife. I have a sister named Magnolia, who is 2 years older than me. We are close in age, and when we were kids, we used to play together and have a lot of fun. Our father cherished both of us, so I was happy. But there was one thing, and that was my mother. I still can't have a decent conversation with her. The reason for this is that she doted on Magnolia, who's good-looking and has treated me badly. My mother has a reputation for being a beauty in the neighborhood, and Magnolia was born with a beautiful face, looking a lot more like her than I was. So my mother cherished only Magnolia. Moreover, because Magnolia is the eldest, she has more new clothes and belongings. My mother would buy Magnolia lots of cute clothes and things and enjoy dressing her up, saying, Magnolia looks so cute in everything because she takes after me. When I saw that, I would often tell my mother, I want one too. I want the clothes Magnolia is wearing. But my mother would reply, what are you talking about? The things Magnolia wears wouldn't suit you, Sienna. A playtip maybe something like this would suit you. And she'd give me a plain t-shirt and skinny jeans. When I was younger, I had more interest in cute things, so I used to cry a lot. When I did, my mother would say, if you're going to cry, then leave. So I learned not to cry and never asked my mother for anything again. I was feeling down because I wanted to wear skirts and lacy dresses like the ones Magnolia wore. Magnolia wasn't aware of the situation, so she would say, Sienna, your figure is so nice and those slim jeans suit you so well. I'm really jealous. Hearing her compliment made me happy, and I quickly cheered up. Since I never complained to Magnolia about our mother, she seemed to think that I preferred simple clothing. However, sometimes Magnolia would ask me, Sienna, come with me. Can I put together an outfit that showcases your great figure? When I went with her, she dressed me in her own clothes and said, I think this would suit you.
I think this would suit you too.
And she had a lot of fun doing it, which made me happy. When it came to snacks and cakes, our mother gave Magnolia plenty, but never bought them for me. She also put me on a strict diet, so I had been slim since I was little. I'd never been praised for my face, so having a good figure was my only strength. I worked hard to maintain it through a healthy lifestyle. I continued wearing skinny jeans and tried to keep the good figure to earn my mother's praise. But she still didn't pay me any attention. I talked to my father and Magnolia about it a few times. But I was too young and couldn't explain my situation well, so it didn't solve the problem fundamentally.
When I said, I want to do things just like Magnolia does.
My father, looking puzzled, would buy us snacks and tell us to share. Magnolia herself sometimes put together outfits for me, but our sizes were different, so I couldn't wear them outside. These were only temporary solutions, and that wouldn't change my mother's treatment toward Minnie. In fact, when we were alone, she would often yell at me like a raging fire. She treated me well in front of Magnolia and my father because she wanted to be a good mother and a good wife to them. I was told that every mother naturally favors the first child she gave birth to, and I tried to convince myself of that, even though it was hard. However, as I went to middle school and high school, I realized that my environment was not normal through conversations with those around me. When I was at home, it was not enjoyable being alone with my mother, as she was always mean, so I actively participated in club activities. My circle of friends expanded, and I made friends with whom I would hang out even on days when there was no school. I had only seen my friends in their school uniforms, so I was astonished when I saw them in their casual clothes. They were all incredibly fashionable and radiant.
They would say things like, my mom bought these clothes and a bag for me the other day. Aren't they cute? Just with smiles on their faces.
I couldn't keep up with my friends and initially felt sad. However, when I mustered the courage to confide in a concerned friend,
she said, Sienna, your mom is mean. That's terrible.
It was the first time I realized that something was wrong. My friend couldn't bear to see me upset and said, well then, look forward to your birthday present. She gave me a lovely makeup set. It became a cherished memory that I still can't forget. But from that moment, I was determined to distance myself from my mother. It was still early summer of my freshman year, but I informed my family that I would move out when I graduate from high school.
I don't think a high school graduate is gonna do well in life.
Well, fine. I promised myself that I would prove my independence. I remembered my mother's hurtful words when I felt discouraged, and that became my driving force. I realized that even if I didn't have good looks, I could still be recognized at work, and that brought me a sense of fulfillment. Fortunately, I met my current husband at my workplace. He listened without a single frown when I talked about my family, especially my mother, and he accepted everything about me. With the full support from my father and Magnolia, we got married. My mother, who puts on a good front, didn't oppose us at the time and accepted our marriage. Later, I became pregnant. Well, I was very happy about it. I was unsure about how to announce it to my family. I especially thought my mother would be indifferent if I told her, but maybe she would dote on her first grandchild if she saw them. I hoped this would be an opportunity to build a good mother-daughter relationship with her. After much contemplation, I gathered the courage to inform my family. I wasn't sure if I can do it alone, so I had my husband and sister-in-law accompany me. We rang the doorbell at my parents' house.
Does
The first to appear was Magnolia.
Sienna? Hope's a great long time. No seat. How have you been? Dad just went out, but he should be back soon. Come on in.
Magnolia behaved cheerfully towards me, just like in the old days, and warmly welcomed me. She also greeted my husband and sister-in-law politely and escorted us to the living room. On the other hand, my mother's expression was tense when she saw my face, but as soon as she realized my husband and sister-in-law were with me, she put on a forced smile. I did not miss such a change in my mother's expression. My mother, who was good at keeping up appearances, acted like a good mother in front of my husband and sister-in-law.
Thank you for coming all the way here. Please have this with Sienna.
As she handed my husband a gift, I glanced at the contents of the bag. I'm not a fan of sweets, but there were plenty of sweet snacks and treats in there. When we went to announce our marriage, my husband mentioned that he liked sweets, and it seemed like my mother remembered that.
Have it with Sienna, even though there was nothing I could eat.
I thought it was the same as always, but I didn't mind anymore.
Oh, I forgot. You don't like sweets, do you? Sorry. But when you live together, you sometimes have no choice but to put up with it, right? Sometimes have no choice but to put up with it, right?
After she looked at me, she said this with a smile to my husband. Hearing that, I knew she deliberately put a large quantity of sweets. My husband quickly responded with a smile. My mother replied, I see, and took a seat. Once everyone was seated, I made my announcement. The reason why I came here today is because I have something to tell you all. I'm actually pregnant. Even though it wasn't bad news, I unconsciously closed my eyes. Open your eyes, Sienna. When I heard Magnolia's voice, I opened my eyes. I'm so glad. Congratulations.
Magnolia said loudly, tears of joy streaming down her face.
Although surprised, my mother said, "Congratulations."
She seemed pleased in front of my husband and sister-in-law, but her eyes didn't match her smile. I tried to avoid looking at my mother as much as possible and continued talking with Magnolia. Have you had any worries since getting pregnant? If you encounter any problems, be sure to let me know and I'll come right away.
Magnolia thoughtfully offered.
Thanks to her, I gradually relaxed. It was around lunchtime and I started feeling hungry. Although I wanted to stay a bit longer, I decided to leave to have lunch.
Then Magnolia said, wait a moment, and hurried to the kitchen. In no time, she whipped up a feast. It's a gift from me. You seemed hungry, so please eat.
I hadn't had such a lavish homemade meal in a while, so I ended up eating more than I expected. Everything is delicious. Thank you.
Magnolia replied, it was a pregnancy announcement from my beloved sister. We needed to celebrate in a grand manner.
Magnolia is so skilled at cooking. She'll make a great wife when she gets married.
When my sister-in-law heard this, she complimented me as much as my mother did to Magnolia. I see. Both sisters are great at cooking. Sienna is also an amazing cook, and her food is delicious. I focused on enjoying Magnolia's cooking, ignoring my mother. Stepped outside. My sister-in-law asked, Sienna, I'm going to the bathroom, but do you want to go first? Well, being considerate, but I didn't need to go, so I urged her to go ahead.
Magnolia also left to make some tea.
I became alone with my mother, and I felt uncomfortable, but I tried to maintain a calm composure as much as I could. She confirmed that no one was nearby. My mother's expression instantly turned stern, and she muttered, Why are you pregnant before Magnolia? I was shocked and I couldn't say anything. In the next moment, my mother said, I want Magnolia's child to be my first grandchild. You get an abortion. She then kicked my belly with all her strength. Ouch, that hurts. But the force of her kick and the intense pain made me cry out, but I remained huddled on the floor, unable to respond properly. Then my sister-in-law said, This is worrying. Let's call an ambulance right away. She quickly arranged for an ambulance. Thank you, both of you, I said with all the strength I could muster. They asked my mother how this happened.
Oh, come on now. Both of you, calm down. Are you saying I did something? She is clumsy, so she suddenly stood up and bumped her belly on the dresser. That's all, and tried to shift the blame onto me.
I began to feel anger rising within me as my mother tried to lighten the mood in that situation. However, the intense pain in my stomach prevented me from uttering a word. Even though I wanted to say that there is no way that I would bump my belly into a dresser, just because I am clumsy, all I could do was crouch down in pain.
At that moment, Magnolia entered the room, stomping her feet, and said, "Mom, I saw everything. You kicked Sienna's belly." She grabbed our mother's collar. She'd always been very kind to me, so seeing her this angry was a first. She confronted our mother with incredible intensity. Everyone in the room froze, and our mother remained passive.
Magnolia looked at me and said, "Sienna, I'm truly sorry. I was bringing some tea, so I couldn't come to you fast enough. I was watching Mom's reaction, since your husband and his sister came to you. But then you kept lying. I won't forgive you. I saw you kick Sienna's belly while gripping our mother's collar."
Magnolia continued, and our mother tried to smooth things over.
While gripping our mother's collar, Magnolia continued, and our mother tried to smooth things over.
Seriously, Magnolia, you are always so dramatic when you get worked up. I would never do such a thing. Besides, there's no evidence, right?
I mustered my last bit of strength and said to her.
Mom, you kicked my belly?
Then, Magnolia shook our mother while accusing her.
You put Sienna and the baby in danger. What are you going to do if something happens to them?
While feeling bewildered by the argument between my mother and Magnolia, I was grateful to Magnolia. At that moment, the sharp throbbing pain in my abdomen hit me repeatedly, and I murmured, "It hurts."
Magnolia, looking startled, immediately released our mother and rushed to my side, offering her support.
The ambulance arrived, and I was taken to the hospital. Because there was a crack in my bone, I had to be admitted immediately, but both the baby and I were fine. Magnolia accompanied me in the ambulance and stayed by my side. When I told my husband and sister-in-law later that everything was all right, they came to visit, and they shed tears of joy.
I'll come every day because I'm worried.
During the time I was in the hospital, the three of them visited me every day, and we had a fun time together. My mother's misdeed became known to my father, and he contacted me to see if I was okay. Later, he forcibly brought my mother to the hospital, where she continued to claim I didn't do it. They just want to be mean to me and frame me. However, the doctor explained that my abdominal injury was not caused by bumping into something, but by a strong force applied from the outside, and that circumstantially, I was kicked hard by a person.
As a mother and as a human being, you've disappointed me.
Finally, my mother apologized to me, although her expression clearly showed she had no real remorse and was apologizing because she had no other choice. After being discharged from the hospital, I decided to tell my father and Magnolia everything that my mother had done to me. What my mother had done consisted of hurtful words, insults, and had always been hidden from my father and Magnolia, so they had never been aware of it. They'd been completely oblivious, and since they had always admired my mother, I had never been able to talk about it before.
Sorry for not noticing it when I've been watching you the closest. Everything Mom said to me about what you liked was a lie, right? Like the clothes and stuff.
I've been a failure as a parent. Diana, I'm really sorry. From now on, don't hesitate to rely on me.
He apologized. I quickly replied,
Magnolia, Dad, this doesn't change the fact that you've always cared for me. That alone makes me happy enough.
We then embraced, the three of us, while shedding tears. Afterward, they decided to cut ties with my mother and advised me to report her to the police. Upon hearing this, my mother pleaded with me,
Please, I beg you, just don't involve the police. Apologize as much as you want me to, so please forgive me. Only you can persuade them.
She went into a frenzy, asking me to intervene. But I knew that deep down, my mother just didn't want to be separated from my father and Magnolia. She didn't show an ounce of remorse for what she had done. Her only concern was avoiding a criminal record, which would tarnish her image as a good mother and wife. When I firmly refused, she started hurling insults.
Have you forgotten gratitude to me for raising you? You're plain and slow at it, yet you dare to act all high and mighty?
She even attempted to physically attack me, but my father and husband, who had been quietly observing, restrained her. My mother couldn't bear the situation where I, whom she always looked down on, was now being protected by those around me, and cried out, "If Magnolia is so important to you, why did you have me?" I asked a question I have been pondering for years, but she only cried, saying that she was tricked by her ungrateful daughter. I was sure that nothing would be resolved like this, so I headed straight to the police station. When I went to the police to seek help, they were initially hesitant. It's a family matter. You should try to handle it yourselves. However, when I brought a lawyer with me, the process became smoother. In the end, my mother was kicked out of the house with no money and arrested. In the meantime, my father finalized the divorce proceedings and sold the family home to ensure that my mother couldn't return. Just before moving, my father, Magnolia, and I spent some quality time together, reminiscing about our memories in that house. I haven't told my mother where I live, so my father and Magnolia moved to a place close to our home. When my mother returned and found out that nobody was at the family home, she called me incessantly. I didn't want to talk to her ever again, so I let it go to voicemail and listened to her message later.
To Betty in a frantic voice. My mother said I'd been arrested, so you should be satisfied now. How far are you going to push me? You don't need to take everything away from me. You don't need to take everything away from me. I'll definitely find you, so be prepared.
I felt a genuine sense of fear, so I changed my phone number. Peaceful days returned, and with the support from everyone, I was able to live a stress-free life. And the day I give birth to my child has come. My whole family was there to witness it, and I gave birth to a healthy baby.
Because this beast is underbearsed.
When the baby cried for the first time,
Everyone rejoiced. Sienna, you did a great job.
my relationship with my mother wasn't great, but I once again felt lucky to have my father, Magnolia, my husband and sister-in-law, who cared about me so much that they almost make me forget about my mother. With another precious addition to our family, our life would become even livelier. I made a promise to myself to shower this child with the love and affection I couldn't receive from my own mother.
Sienna, you should be the first one to hold the baby.
Prompted by Magnolia, I held my child for the first time. I was surrounded and blessed by everyone, by the side of my baby who was sleeping peacefully. I am going to do my best as a mother so that this happy life will continue for many years to come.